Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, Jackson Kellogg. Today, we'll be getting into Week 6 of my NFL Power Rankings. Can't believe it's already Week 6. There's been so much stuff going on in the league. I'll go over some new stuff that's been going on, that's been happening with each team. So starting right off the bat at the bottom of my Power Rankings, as always, the New York Jets got blown out by the Cardinals, and their team just got even worse by releasing Le'Veon Bell, and they're reportedly shopping wide receiver. Jesus, I can't talk today. Wide receiver Jamison Crowder, as well as cornerback Brian Poole. So both players have money on them. Jamison Crowder, I'm pretty sure, was just signed this offseason, though, so that's a bit of a surprising move. Even he's been playing pretty well and being productive for them as their number one receiver. So that Jamison Crowder is a little bit shocking to me. And then with Brian Poole, the Jets are just trying to get younger on that defense and see what they have in those positions. At 31, I have the Giants. Technically a close loss to the Cowboys. I'm shocked at how much points they put up despite them playing the Cowboys with an atrocious defense. But their own defense couldn't even hold the fort down as they gave up over 30 points again. So that defense is definitely going to have to get some work done on it. The offense does look better, though. You can look on the brighter side with it right now. At 30, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Boy, have they just gone downhill after that Week 1 win against the Colts. They got beat out by a winless team in the Texans, who just fired their head coach and general manager because it's the same person. He didn't do a very good job. But Jaguars, one of their best groups this year was supposed to be their pass rush in Josh Allen, Kayvon Chaisson, Miles Jack, and they've all combined. I think there's one other player, I forget his name, but their pass rush has gotten under 10 sacks in the last 5 games. So that's not a good sign for the Jaguars. As their only bright spot right now looks to be their wide receiving group. At 29 of the Detroit Lions, they were on a bye this week. Going to look to get all their players healthy again. Stafford's going to have to step up his game a little bit if the Lions want to stay competitive. They've been in games, but they haven't been able to finish. And after this week, if the Lions lose, I'd expect a possible firing of Matt Patricia. At 28, the Cincinnati Bengals, same spot as last week. The Bengals were not able to get anything going this week. A.J. Green was visibly frustrated. He hasn't been... his prime is far in the past. He's done in this league, probably. They caught a clip of him on the sideline, like saying, "Just trade me if you're not going to use me." Except part of the problem is him. Another part, the biggest issue with the Bengals right now is their offensive line, as they can't get anything going on offense because that offensive line keeps putting pressure on Joe Burrow. So Bengals definitely have to work on their offensive line play. At 27, I have the Denver Broncos. They were not able to play this week after the Patriots had multiple COVID tests pop positive. So their game was pushed back, but the Broncos got moved down more or less because teams below them played this week and won. You'll see that in a second. But the Broncos are going to have to show that they have good depth as they've dealt with multiple injuries this year. But I believe Drew Lock will be back this week to play the Patriots. At number 26, I have the Washington football team. The Dwayne Haskins era is over. He's been benched. I do believe Kyle Allen is healthy enough to start this week. But if not, Alex Smith will be the starter, and Dwayne Haskins, if Allen is healthy, will be back to being the third string yet again this week. Haskins just couldn't put in the effort and was childish and didn't show that he could be a franchise quarterback. So his time in Washington is done, and he'll have to look for another opportunity somewhere else. At 25, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. They put up a decent amount of points against the Steelers, who are supposedly have to have are supposedly a top 3 defense, which I don't quite fully believe, but we'll let the analysts who get paid more money than I do make those statements. But the Eagles, they put up a decent amount of points on offense, but defense was absolutely atrocious as usual. They do not have a linebacking core. Their defensive line isn't getting the pressure that they need to, and their secondary just let rookie Chase Claypool catch 3 touchdowns on them and score another rushing. So, bad look for the Eagles defense. At 24 of the Atlanta Falcons, they just fired Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff. So right now, I forget his name, but I believe they put in their defensive coordinator as interim head coach. So we'll see how he does. But the Falcons are probably going to end up gutting this team in the offseason, including a Julio Jones move and even a Matt Ryan move, possibly. So this Falcons team is going to look very different next year. At 23, I have the Miami Dolphins. I did not expect them to get that win against the Niners, but that was partially due to the fact that Jimmy G was rushed back into play. Nick Mullins wasn't able to perform against the Eagles. They know what they have in C.J. Beathard, so they tried to rush Jimmy G back to try and stay competitive in a very tough NFC West, and it did not work out as Jimmy G was not ready and played very poorly against a Dolphins team that scored over 40 points on the Niners. So good win for the Dolphins. They're going to look to build off of this. At 22 of the Minnesota Vikings, they kept it close against the Seahawks. Definitely closer than most teams have this year other than the Patriots. But again, the Vikings have issues of finishing off games. Their offense did not perform well. Dalvin Cook didn't get a ton of carries until later in the game, and even by the time he started rumbling, he got hurt and might miss some time. So the Vikings offense just took a huge blow. Kirk Cousins needs to step up and start performing better, or he might lose his job next year. At 21, the Houston Texans, they played well after getting rid of Bill O'Brien. Romeo Crennel did a nice job as interim head coach for the Texans this week as they pulled off a win against the Jaguars. The team looked better, but they still have more work to improve on, so they're going to hope to do that in the coming weeks to stay competitive in the AFC South. At 20, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. Ever since that close win against the Chiefs, they've just gone downhill. Herbert, they kept it close against the Saints. There were a lot of close games this week, but they had a 20-3 lead in the second quarter over the Saints, and they couldn't hold it and lost in overtime 30-27. So the Chargers defense wasn't able to hold up, and the Chargers offense hit a halt. So they can't let that happen in the future. They just need to keep going. But Herbert will learn slowly as he goes, as he's been pretty much named the definitive starter for the rest of the year. At 19, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I told you they were overrated, and they got blown out by the Cleveland Browns, who are in my top 10, but you'll see that in a second. But the Colts, they did not play well against the Browns. They could not stop the Browns' offense, and it was not even at full strength. And Phillip Rivers could not get it done against a not elite Browns defense. So Colts are going to have to look to get better and start scoring more points because they didn't score enough points against the Browns. At 18, I have the Carolina Panthers. I slept on the Panthers going into the season because their defense was revamped, lots of new young players, and the offense, it's a whole new starting quarterback, and they brought in some new pieces. But they've put everything together nicely as the season has gone on. Matt Rule has done a nice job with them. The defense is becoming more solidified, and the offense looks great, even in the absence of Christian McCaffrey. So as long as Teddy Bridgewater can keep performing well, this looks like this could be a good team in the next coming years. At 17, I have the Chicago Bears. They should not have won that game. The Bears should not have won that game. They played worse than the Buccaneers, in my opinion. Nick Foles struggled in that game. It was a very defensive game. And the Bears pretty much lost because Tom Brady forgot how many downs there are in a game. I rewatched that play where Brady thought it was third down, but it was really fourth. He had a wide open guy on his left side that was like running an out kind of. And if he threw it to him, he would have been able to run for the first down. But Brady, thinking it was third, decided to take the shot. Almost got tipped by a Bears linebacker, but then he couldn't thread the needle to get it to his receiver. So it was a drop pass and a turnover on downs. So the Bears, I feel like they got lucky with that one. Nick Foles definitely didn't look his greatest, and that's what you get when you get regular season Nick Foles, or full-time starter Nick Foles. So Bears definitely have to look to improve on the offensive front. At 16, I have the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners have been one of the most unluckiest teams this year with all the injuries that they've had to deal with. But that was a very poor performance against the Dolphins. They allowed over 40 points against the Dolphins offense that doesn't sport much talent and let Ryan Fitzpatrick throw all over them. So the Niners definitely have to look and improve on their defensive side with their depth pieces because a football team isn't good if you don't have good depth, and we've seen it across the league with multiple teams. Eagles. So Niners definitely have to get better on that front. At 15, I have the Cowboys. It doesn't feel like a win for the Cowboys after they just lost Dak Prescott for essentially the year, as after surgery they're saying it's a 4 to 6 month recovery, which would be the full season pretty much. So you won't see Dak again for the rest of the season, and it's going to be interesting because he is a free agent after the season. So it'll be curious to see if someone is willing to pay him after this injury. Cowboys, they looked good as always on offense, but defensively they're still inconsistent and they lack the effort. I mean, they let a Giants offense that doesn't know how to execute get 34 points on them, so that's not a good sign for this Cowboys defense. Luckily, they play in the weakest division in the league and will probably win the division, but it's not looking good for them defensively. At 14, I have the Raiders. Ooh, the AFC just got interesting. I could go on forever about what could happen in the AFC just by what happened with the Raiders-Chiefs. So I'll try to keep it short. The Raiders, they followed along with what the Patriots did against the Chiefs. They shut down their weapons, and they controlled the ball. It was great play by the Raiders. It was blueprint how to beat the Chiefs. They kept up in scoring. Derek Carr played great. I love that Derek Carr keeps playing well and shutting up all the haters saying that he shouldn't be the quarterback. But he keeps on performing, so good for him, good for the Raiders, as they're going to be competing. I mean, they beat the Chiefs, so you could say they're competing for the division, but most likely a wild card spot. At 13, I have the Cardinals. A little bit of a move up after last week's win against the Jets. It is the Jets, so it is expected, but it was a good offensive performance in which DeAndre Hopkins just lit up that Jets secondary. With over 100 yards and a touchdown, I believe. So, great play by the Cardinals offensively. The defense looked better, but they just lost Chandler Jones for the year, who's arguably their best defensive player. So, that's not a good sign for the Cardinals, especially in a division that includes the Seahawks and Rams, who can put up points like nothing. So, the Cardinals are going to have to get ready to be in shootouts for the rest of the season. At 12, I do have the Los Angeles Rams. They did have a good dominant win against Washington. Beat up on Kyle Allen and Alex Smith, as I think Aaron Donald had like 4 sacks in that game. But I don't think they're good enough to move up yet, as they haven't beaten a competitive team yet. So you need to see that out of them to determine whether they're a contender or a pretender. At 11, I have the Buccaneers. You know Tom Brady wouldn't have made that mistake if he was with the Patriots, though, right? That's more fuel for the Belichick made Brady argument. But the Buccaneers, they should have played better against a not-so-great Bears team that's worse than what their record says. I mean, you have weapons like Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski, and you can only put up 17 points. I mean, I know the Bears' defense is pretty decent, and like you've got Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson, but I mean, geez, man, like 17 points are supposed to be this all-star offense, and you couldn't perform. So that's not a good sign for the Buccaneers. Getting into the top 10, I have the Steelers at 10. I dropped them a little bit just because a lot of people have the Steelers inside their top 5, which I don't understand, because a top 5 team wouldn't allow the Eagles to score over 25 points on them. Yes, the Steelers look good offensively, but again, it was against an Eagles defense that is ranked as one of the worst in the league. So it didn't. The win against the Eagles for the Steelers didn't really show much to me. If anything, it lacked faith that the defense isn't as good as people say it is. At number 9, I do have the Cleveland Browns. Choo-choo on the Cleveland Browns hype train, because it is taking off with a 4-1 start to the season. The last time they had a 4-1 start in a season was back in 1994. Guess who was head coach? That would be none other than Bill Belichick. And another interesting part of that team was the defensive coordinator at the time was Nick Saban, Alabama's head coach, who just got COVID, so that's a little fun fact. But the Browns look good. They're figuring out their offensive identity. Myles Garrett is looking like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and the defense is slowly starting to piece itself together. So good look for the Browns. At number 8, I have the New Orleans Saints. They kind of got lucky with the comeback, but a comeback win is a comeback win. You can't ignore any comeback win, no matter who it is or who it's against. So Drew Brees showed that he still has the magic on going to get his team to a win. Great job by the Saints coming back from down 20 to 3 in the second quarter. That could have gotten ugly really quick, but they stayed in the game and showed up and got the win. At 7, I have the Buffalo Bills. Listen, I thought the Bills were going to go in and win that game. I thought, maybe I'm being too harsh on the Bills. Josh Allen, he's really looking like he's developing. Defense was, nope. The Titans were without A.J. Brown, so you would think that, it'd be easier to cover. Granted, the Bills were without some of their top defensive starters in Tre'Davious White, Tremaine Edmonds, and Levi Wallace, but geez, Josh Norman could not cover that game. The play that summed up the game for Bills-Titans was Derrick Henry's stiff arm on Josh Norman, as it was just brutal, and it really showed how the Bills just got curb stomped, 42 to 14, by the Titans. Brutal loss for the Bills, not looking good for a team that was supposed to be a contender for both the AFC East as well as the Super Bowl. At number 6, I do have the Patriots. Yes, I moved the Patriots ahead of the Bills because the Patriots are 2-2, and their 2 losses are to the Seahawks and the Chiefs. And that Chiefs loss should have been a win, and they were 1 play away from beating the Seahawks. So the Patriots could be 4-0 right now, and in the number 1 spot in my power rankings. But they're not. So they're at 6. Cam Newton's going to be back after his time with COVID. Stephon Gilmore will not play in the Broncos game, I don't think. But Cam Newton is a definitive. So Cam Newton's going to go in there and beat up on a struggling Broncos team, hopefully. But the Patriots are going to start putting together their team. They're out of their September slump that normally happens, and now they're really going to start putting this team together. Getting into the top 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens at 5. I chose not to move them because they had a dominant win. But I mean, this team showed that they could not beat a competitive team in the Chiefs. And the Ravens are one of those teams that I feel like if they hold on to Lamar Jackson and he stays healthy, which he most likely will, the Ravens are going to be one of those teams that'll make the playoffs or be competitive against teams that suck, but they can't beat the competitive teams. I'd say the Ravens are usually the Patriots' kryptonite, so I'd say maybe they'll beat the Patriots. But other than that, I don't think they can beat competitive teams. I think they clearly showed that they lost to the Chiefs. I think the Titans would beat them if they played right now. I think the Patriots would have a shot, and I think the Bills would have a shot even after their blowout loss to the Titans. And I think the Browns are going to give them a run for their money at the end of the season, and even possibly the Raiders. So the Ravens definitely have to show that they can be competitive against the top teams, and I don't think they can beat any of the 4 teams that are in front of them. So that leads me at number 4 to put the Chiefs. They are out of the top spot. Not a good showing for them against the Raiders. Mahomes isn't looking like his normal Mahomes self. Their offense is still putting up points, but they're not able to finish games as people are slowly starting to figure out who Mahomes is and what their offensive identity is, and they're starting to figure out how to defend it. So that's a scary idea to hear if you're a Chiefs fan, especially when they thought that they were going to put up the next dynasty. Good try, guys. Top 3, I have the Titans as the number 1 team in the AFC. They faced a Bills team that, the Bills had a huge hype train going. They were beating opponents. The Titans were only beating teams closely. They were barely getting out of wins with game-winning field goals by Gostkowski. They just showed that they are a contender in the AFC as they absolutely demolished the Bills. Wasn't even close. They made Josh Allen look like rookie Josh Allen. And the offense did its normal thing where Derrick Henry pounds the ball and Ryan Tannehill throws play actions all over the place. Great offensive and defensive plays on both sides of the ball. Malcolm Butler had 2 interceptions. Great play all around for the Titans, which is why they are deserving of the top spot right now in the AFC. And number 2, I have Seattle Seahawks. Good performance against the Vikings. Definitely have to look to get better defensively, as it was a close win. Thankfully, Russell Wilson is a amazing all-star athlete and player, one of the best in the league right now, as I believe they just made him a 99 overall in Madden. He went down, game-winning drive, scored on the last play of the game to DK Metcalf. Great ball by Wilson. I didn't think he was going to get that, but Seahawks pulled through with the win, and they showed that they are a force to be reckoned with in competing for a Super Bowl. At number 1, I definitely didn't expect this at this point in the season. I have the Green Bay Packers at the number 1 spot. Aaron Rodgers is looking great. Between him and Russell Wilson, they're the 2 competing for MVP of the league right now. So right now I'd have to give it to Wilson just because his stats are off the charts. But Aaron Rodgers is looking great. That offense, I mean, he's thrown 5 touchdowns to nobody tight end named Robert Tonyan. Like, I didn't even know who that was before 2 weeks ago. So the Packers have always been that team to win with nobodies, and they're still doing it. The defense still performing great. They just came off of a bye, so they're going to have to look to keep that train going. They got some time of rest, good week to game plan, and get ready for a push to go compete for a Super Bowl. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did and aren't subscribed, please do subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated, as well as leaving a like on the video. Hope you all have a great day. This is Thursday, but no Thursday Night Football tonight, as Bills-Chiefs was pushed back till Sunday. So no Thursday Night Football tonight for the first time in a long time. Again, thank you so much for watching. I believe tomorrow I'm going to do Game Picks or Boston Tea Party Podcast, and then the other on Saturday, or I'll flip it. We'll see how that goes. Depends on what I've got going on. But hope you all have a great rest of your week. Better be rooting for those Patriots on Sunday against the Broncos.